Now with most E3s, we are given a ton of information and announcements for various games and upcoming titles. Now with E3 2019 all but over, we can easily say it wasn't exactly the best E3 ever. It was by no means the worst, but compared to some previous years, it was a little bit lackluster. Nonetheless, there were highlights. So, without further ado, I'm Darcblade, and here are my highlights from E3 2019. Now remember, these are personal preferences, and whilst I won't be including annual games or the vast majority of mobile games, there were still quite a few that stood out for me personally and got me on the hype train. Now I won't be going through these games in any particular order, as trying to organise a top 10 or top 25 list is sometimes more work than it should be, but nonetheless, these are the titles that stood out for me. The first title to stand out for me was Ori and the Will of the Wisp, the sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest. This was shown off during the Microsoft conference. Whilst we were only shown a trailer, the trailer showed off potential boss battles and more. It showed Ori in action with his new weapons, such as his bow type weapon, and the bosses shown seem in a way to almost coincide with the various elements, so to speak. So you could potentially see each one of these bosses being divided into 4 set zones. Unfortunately, there was no gameplay of the baby owl in play, but luckily we were given a release date of the 11th of February 2020, so we won't have to wait too much longer. Also good news, this is going to be for both Xbox players and PC players out there. Next was Star Wars: The Fallen Order. This is probably the only thing from EA this year that actually caught my eye, unfortunately. EA have been in a little bit of a downward spiral, but given their recent releases and that, I can understand why they may want to take a little bit of a back seat when it comes to dealing with the public. Nonetheless, despite kind of falling out of love with Star Wars The Fallen Order was interesting to behold. They showed off gameplay, and although some bits look a little bit janky, it still nonetheless caught my attention. During both the EA Play event and the Microsoft conference, they showed off various gameplay aspects and trailers for the game. And players who are looking forward to playing this won't have to wait long. It will be released on the 15th of November 2019. Next was The Blair Witch. I thought this title was dead and gone with the movies, but during the Microsoft conference they resurrected it, showing off a trailer that gave a Outlast vibe to it. Using your camera to see in the dark, what I assume the main protagonist and his doggo were searching the woods for a person who had become lost. Unfortunately, I can't really talk much more about this game as very little information was shown. There looked like there was gameplay, but to be honest, this was probably pre-rendered cutscene. Still, nonetheless, being a fan of horror games, I can't help but put it on the list. Anyway, next, and a big one, is Cyberpunk 2077. During the Microsoft conference, they showed off a extended trailer showing more story aspects that kind of followed on from the gameplay demonstration shown off a few months ago. Now, I've always been a bit tentative when it comes to Cyberpunk because I don't feel it's going to quite live up to the excellence that was the Witcher franchise for CD Projekt Red. Nonetheless, having recently seen that gameplay demo that was shown off a few months ago, and looking into the original Cyberpunk mythology, the hype train has left the station at full steam. On top of that as well, towards the end of the trailer, Keanu Reeves made an appearance in-game. This kind of shocked the audience, especially when he appeared on stage, giving us a little bit more information about Cyberpunk 2077, as well as playing the audience excellently. Finally as well, they gave us a release date of the 16th of April 2020, so time to book the day off work. Anyway, next was Gears of War 5, or Gears 5. This was again shown off during the Microsoft conference and seems to expand the story even more. They gave off demonstrations of a new escape mode, a free-player co-op mode. That seems to be the evolution of the Horde mode that Gears of War originally introduced. With a release date of September the 10th, it's not far around the corner. The next highlight was Borderlands 3. This was shown off in various forms. It was shown off at the Microsoft press conference as well as through various trailers, and showed off more of what we can expect when it's released on the 13th of September 2019. The trailer shown gave us another look at the various characters in game and just continued to build the hype. But moving on to our next highlight, which is Ghostwire Tokyo. This again was one I would put near the top of the list. This was shown off during the Bethesda conference. Ghostwire has been developed by the same developers who developed The Evil Within, which for me is one of my favourites. I know it's not the greatest game series out there, but I really enjoyed it. And if they can bring us a experience that has a similar vibe, I'm all for it. Although this time they're focusing more on action-adventure horror rather than survival horror, so this is going to be interesting. The enemies are supposed to be supernatural foes, and they showed a trailer, and although there was no gameplay shown in the trailer, unfortunately, it gave us a feel of what they're trying to go for. On top of that, the adorable developers, with their broken English, couldn't help bring a smile to my face. Next was Doom Eternal, the last game shown off during the Bethesda conference. During the presentation, they showed off both a pre-rendered trailer as well as gameplay. We can expect more of the same but they seem to be implementing a lot more platforming and airborne elements to the game. Whether this will detract from the experience, we'll have to wait and see, but I doubt it. On top of that, they showed off Battle Mode, which was a Demon vs Slayer mode, which they described as a first-person fighting game. This had 2 Demon players fighting 1 Slayer player. And whilst this mode didn't really appeal to me, the entire package as a whole got me excited. And we won't have to wait too much longer, as it will be released on November the 22nd, 2019. The next highlight, and again one I would put pretty high, but not many people would probably agree with me, is the Fall Guys. This was a game shown off during the Devolver Digital E3 conference. This is what can be only described as Takeshi's Castle combined with jelly beans and Battle Royale. 100 players, taking the form of these little jelly beans, tried to run various obstacle courses, with the ultimate goal of claiming a crown at the end of the gauntlet. From the trailer that was shown and the alpha gameplay that was shown off behind the scenes, I am really excited for this Battle Royale game. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait a little bit longer, as it's going to be released early 2020 for PlayStation 4 and PC. The next game that caught my eye was Zoo Planet. This was shown off during the PC Gaming Show. This game is pretty much Zoo Tycoon brought to the modern day. During this gameplay trailer, they showed off the various animals we can house in our zoo, and although I didn't see anything that was entirely unique from previous zoo management games, I'm nonetheless excited to get my hands on it. We won't have to wait long either, as it's released November the 5th, 2019. Next, and another game that I would put fairly high on the list, is Maneater. Again, it was shown off during the PC Gaming Show, and the developers gave us both a trailer showing the main villain of the game, and it also showed off some gameplay. If you're not aware, this game is an RPG where you play as a shark. The gameplay demonstrations gave us some insight about how you're going to move as the shark, how we level up, how we complete quests and more. Unfortunately though, we do have to wait a little bit longer, as there is no release date. They simply gave us a vague period of 2020. Anyway, let's move on to the next game that caught our eye, which was Watchdogs Legion. This was shown off during the Ubisoft conference. I have had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with Watch Dogs. I was really excited for the game when it first came out with Watch Dogs 1, but I was severely disappointed with the title. It left such a bad taste in my mouth, I didn't even bother with Watch Dogs 2. However, what they showed off of Watchdogs Legion has whetted my appetite a little bit more for this series. The fact that it's also set in London also helps. Anyway, during some pre-alpha gameplay, they showed off our character trying to recruit another NPC to DedSec. But to our surprise, he was killed, showing that there is a permadeath mode in the game. We then panned out and started taking control of this old granny, which revealed that we do in fact control multiple agents throughout the city. And with the permadeath system implemented, this is going to be very interesting. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait till March 6, 2020 to get our hands on it. Anyway, the next game that got me excited was Final Fantasy VII Remake. This was shown off during the Square Enix conference. This was pretty much the main event of Square. During a short trailer, they gave us a taste of what the first part of this remake will entail. It's basically going to take place in the whole Migdar area of Final Fantasy VII. It's going to be spread over 2 Blu-ray discs, so you can get some idea about the size of the game. They then went on to show gameplay, namely how combat will be working within the Final Fantasy VII Remake. How they didn't want to make it a button masher, so you attack via normal attacks, build up your gauge, and then you can enter tactical mode to use materia and other abilities. The combat really did look good. Square then went on to show an extended trailer introducing Tifa, which excited the crowd. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait for part 1 of the remake, as it's being released on the 3rd of March 2020. And again, this is just going to be part 1, and there's no telling how many parts there are going to be, unfortunately, which is probably the biggest con against this remake. Anyway, we're getting to the end. Next game that caught my list was Luigi's Mansion 3. Shown off during the Nintendo Direct stream, this showed us the next installment in the Luigi's Mansion franchise. It looks to be more of the same, just with a lot more elements added. For example, you can create a green gooey Luigi doppelganger to assist you in your ghost hunts. Nintendo as well, during the trailer and gameplay demonstrations, gave us a release date of 2019 but didn't specify anything else, unfortunately. Next game that caught my list was a tease during the Nintendo Direct, showing us the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Unfortunately, during the 82-second trailer that had Link and Zelda traversing a dark dungeon, we didn't get much more information. No release date, not even a title. So unfortunately, this is one we're going to be waiting on for a long time. Maybe until Nintendo's next console. We'll have to wait and see. And finally, and this may be a bit biased, is Monster Hunter World Iceborne. This was shown off during a Capcom developer stream, separate to the other conferences in E3 2019. Nonetheless, during this stream they showed off much more information about fine details of Monster Hunter World Iceborne, including the new town, new area, and they even gave us a demonstration of a Tigrex hunt. I've covered this in more depth in a separate video, but for me this still stood out as one of the highlights. But anyway, those were my highlights from E3 2019. Remember that this is a personal list compiled by myself and Mischief, so don't take this as any sort of concrete list. With that being said, I would love to hear what your top moments from E3 2019 were. What were the games shown off that you were most excited about? So leave a comment down below, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a highlight video of all the best moments I enjoyed from E3 2019. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.